Welcome to another episode of the Community Podcast, a conversational podcast exploring the stories, insights, and strategies behind learning-centric communities. Our mission is to inspire listeners by highlighting individuals who are shaping the future of how people come together to learn, grow, and thrive. I am thrilled today to welcome Yurii Lazaruk, a community builder, ecosystem connector, and the creator behind some of the most human-centered spaces in the community space, including the beloved Between Two Water Coolers meetup series and the Community ROI Podcast. With over a decade of experience spanning startups, nonprofits, and global platforms, Yuri has built and grown communities across freelancing, sales, tech, and education, always with the focus on real relationships over vanity metrics. At the heart of his work is a deceptively simple idea. Community is where people take other people's challenges as their own. Yuri, it's awesome to have you on the show today. How are you doing today?
Hey Farhan, happy to see you here. Usually I'm on the other side, but yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, it's such an amazing introduction. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I'm thrilled personally to have you here, and we've interacted in so many different spaces. And I always like to preface the audience with kind of all the accolades and things that my guests have. I think they'll get a very good sense of what you're really passionate about when it comes to community by the end of this episode. You're a fixture in the community landscape. Your name is very well known, but I would love to understand, who was Yuri before he became who he is today?
It's so fun that you said that. I actually joined the community world very accidentally. There is Adrian Speyer, who wrote an accidental community manager book, and I didn't read this, but I can totally relate to the title. So I didn't know what community is at all. I was just, some long time ago, I was doing my internet shop and I had some troubles with SEO. And then I hired a company, then I had to fire a company because they didn't do a good job. But I knew that they didn't do a good job because of the forum, SEO forum. I met some people, had conversations with them, and then why don't we meet in real life? So basically that's how my first community started. And then for 5-6 years, I was doing the community without even knowing that it's called community building. I was just thinking that we create a space for people to meet, for people to talk, to exchange experiences, to have some pizza together, to have some good time. Then the war started in Ukraine at some point, and I was like, okay, what's going on in the world? I need to, to turn into, I lost any sources of income overnight because it was about communities, it was about meetups, it was about some training courses and stuff. But then luckily I already was connected to a few people in the community world, so I started my international journey a little earlier. So I just messaged a few people. I remember I messaged David Spinks, one of the founders of the CMX community, and saying hey David, I just lost all the sources of income. I'm a community builder. Can you help me to find some kind of a project or whatever? He sent a message. That's how I met a few amazing humans. And I also worked with CMX back then. And that's how I joined the international community world. For me, it still is just going out, talking to people, asking questions, answering the questions they ask, and just keep on exchanging. It was very weird to see that some stars of community world are so down to earth that you can easily reach out to them. You can easily send them a message on LinkedIn, ask them for a coffee chat, or ask them to join a podcast. And they're totally open. They share their experience. They do the things. I was like, what kind of an industry is this? And they're like, oh, it's community building. So basically you can have fun with people, talk to someone, build human relationships, and even get paid for that. I was like, no way on earth. But that's exactly how it works. And later on, I learned how do you build community for businesses, because all my prior experience was about creating communities for professionals like SEO, marketing, sales expert, paid advertisement expert. And then I learned that actually you can build community for customers. It can help your customer support. It can help to grow your product. It can help with user-generated content, with sales, with retention, with referrals. I was like, no way, human, business, connected, the best place to be. So it's a very, very TLDR of my community journey. But yeah, I hope you have a feeling how it worked out.
Oh, Yuri, that's a fantastic overview because actually, you're not the first person that I brought onto the podcast who's shared that they fell into this space somewhat accidentally. They were already doing the work without realizing that there was a formal name around it or some type of an ecosystem built around this craft. So it's really encouraging to hear that for those that are interested in maybe launching their communities or becoming involved in this space, it's a very welcoming environment, right? So you can easily reach out and you can easily make these connections. And would you say, Yuri, this is going to be a little bit of a tangential question. I'm going to jump ahead to one of the questions I wanted to ask later, but do you think technology is actually enabling better sense of community and better community building? Or do you think as a professional who does this day to day, do you have to balance that in person, maybe what you had pre-pandemic, all that kind of stuff with the current technology overload that we're all in?
Do you think cars made us better humans or worse humans? Like, it's just a technology, it's just a tool. And people are talking about AI, like replacing humans, blah, blah, blah. Like, I work a lot with like ChatGPT or any other LLMs, and it sucks. I mean, like, it sucks in being human. Yes, it can find some problem in the code. Sometimes I remember I created my website and then I changed something and it didn't work. And I was like, where's the error? So I just put the code into ChatGPT and, hey, can you find me an error? It found me an error. I fixed it. Yeah, thank you. But like when it's about talking to people or coming up with a story that you tell, that you share with others, or like it sucks. And I don't know if it will be better soon. Who knows? Let's see. But it's just a tool. Any kind of technology, whatever you got. Look, I was managing communities with thousands of people on Slack. Will I message each person manually? Of course not. I will use the tools that send like bulk messages, and then when people answer, of course, I'm there as a human. For example, I'm sending in a newsletter. Will I send a newsletter to everyone? No way. Or for example, we are recording a podcast. Yes, afterwards I have a transcript, which once again made by AI tools, and then I decide on title, description, and stuff. Like, why should I spend time doing this? I know the conversation. I go through transcript once again to remind myself what we were talking about. And then I just ask tools to make me a summary, to make me like some template that I can use for future posts. But it doesn't mean that I just take this and post it. So it's a starting point. So for me, tools will never replace humans. Who knows? We'll see. There is this Terminator movie. I don't know what will happen next. I know there is a company registered called Skynet. So you never know. But I believe that technologies are making people better. And for example, if we are talking about community space, it helps to save time on these routine tasks, on organizing all the content you have, on finding some data, some analytics that you had to spend a ton of time, and you actually can be more human. So you just outsource all this work that no one likes to do. Okay, there are some people who like doing it. For me, no. I just outsource this work to the tools, and then I'm just keep on investing in human relationships. So yeah, that's my answer. That could be definitely short. And the short answer is no, technologies won't replace human. And they're just our tools that we must use.
I cannot agree more, Yuri. And I see that in my day-to-day and everything that I do is let's use these tools for what they're very good at, and let's leverage the time that we save to do what we are good at thing, right? So it's a huge piece of, I think, it's a learning that a lot of other folks in our space have been reiterating, but we can't lose sight of it is why I keep reinforcing it, because there's a lot of people out there that are naysaying the technology piece, but it's been a force multiplier for a ton of community builders, I would say, not just us, and for any professional out there, I would say at this point.
I read somewhere, I don't remember the name of the book, but when the first car was invented, people were driving it and other people were thinking that it's driven by demons. They were afraid of it and they were running around. Once again, I don't know if it's true or not. I didn't actually check, but I read it in some good book, so I hope it's true. But you have to catch up with the world, and some people didn't. I know some people who are not using laptops or computers or smartphones. It's your choice, you can be with the whole world, or you can be like the Amish, or I don't know, how do you call those people?
Yeah, you can be somebody that makes this willful decision to reject technology and or minimize technology. More power to them. Honestly, I see them as inspirational figures because The ills of technology, we can't discount those either, where people are stuck to their phones and just not making human interactions a priority. That's also bad, right? So we need to find the balance as individuals, both in our professional as well as our personal lives. One thing I'll ask you, Yuri, because you did touch on this a little bit earlier, and I want to kind of double click into this, is you've seen so many different communities across the time that you've spent in this space, the work that you're doing as a consultant, the work that you're doing building your podcast and your business. From all the organizations that you've seen at a very high level, what are some of the common things that high-performing communities do that the struggling ones don't? If you could name one or two things that makes a really high-performing community.
So first of all, it's leadership buy-in, that community people who are building community team doesn't have to continuously explain. I mean, they have to show results and they have to work with other teams, but they don't need to prove the value of the community. So they're just doing the work and people are already working with them and already helping them. And second, I would say it's like starting with a business goal. I had some clients who were like dividing community from business. I was like, why don't you connect them? So you can actually, and they're like, no, don't tell our community members about the business that we are doing. I'm like, why? It's like the core that you are doing and you are building community for these professionals. It's totally okay when you tell them honestly what you are doing and then you honestly helping them. And at some point, they might want to work with you. Why do you want to separate them? But once again, when you connect your community goals with business goals, and then you know that you are moving in one direction, you have a North Star where you want your business to go, and then you kind of like decompose from this North Star, you're coming back and thinking about what steps to take to get there. It's so much better because you already know what you are doing. At least you have an idea of where you want to go, and then you find the tools and find the ways of how to get there. Then you know how to work with your people, what actions to encourage them to take. Because if you are creating community for high marketing professionals and then you're talking about your dogs and cats all the time in the community, I don't know if it gives any value. Yes, of course, people like talking about their pets and sometimes it can be interesting conversation, but will it stick? I don't know, because those people, they have their own goals, they like professional, personal, and community have to serve them. So once again, very short, two things: leadership buy-in and clear connection to business goals.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that reflected in a lot of your recent work as well, Yuri. So I'll put all of your links in the show notes, but I encourage our listeners to actually look into some of the work that you're doing in that space of not forgetting or not, neglecting the fact that the business component is such a huge piece of that overall success framework. And if I were to reflect personally, Yuri, I've been in so many Slack communities. I'm just going to use that as an example. Discord is another one. There's tons and tons of these out there, right? And there's always that hashtag random group, right, where people are uploading pictures of their pets or they're talking about where they're going to be going on vacation or just asking funny and silly things. I have to admit that out of the 25 different Slack communities that I maybe joined in the last year, I only pay attention to maybe 3. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it just lost meaning for me, the other ones that I left. Maybe it was information overload. I open up Slack and I see every single thread is unread and I only stepped away for 3 days, right? We understand the business standpoint. If you're building a community, make sure that you have leadership buy-in and you have business goals tied to community goals. But for the person that is in a community, right, who is trying to figure out, I don't want to fall behind. I want to still make sure things are relevant to me. I want to still make sure that I can contribute in a positive way, in a meaningful way. What are your strategies there? Because I personally struggle with this. It's a selfish question, and I'm imagining that our listeners do as well.
Look, you always have a random channel, and it's okay. So we run the Freelancing Lot conference, and we created a community on WhatsApp. Please never use this as a tool. It's a shitty tool for communities, but it is what it is. At least everyone has WhatsApp on their phones, and it's easy to get people inside, and it's okay. When you are at the conference, you want to meet people, you just send a message on the community, and then you meet. And we created recently, even though we were running this conference for 3 years already, we just now created the random group, like we called it the Freelancing Lot Party group, where people are sharing some songs or some memes or whatever. And it's not the most active group. It's good that people are talking from time to time there to connect more on a human level. But once again, if it's the only group or if it's the main group in a community, if we're talking about like community for professionals or community around some specific cause, but if random channel is the main group, maybe you have to switch the main goal of your community. Maybe you are not building community around the business, but you are just building chill community for people to talk about something that they just want to randomly talk about. But overall, my personal belief is that people are busy and they have lives. So if we are not talking about the work, we also have families, we have pets, we have friends. I'm not talking about the family friends. It's a good place to spend your attention on. But all the piece of technology, or every social platform, even LinkedIn, everyone is trying to get a piece of you. Everyone tries to get your attention. And if community is another place that tries to get your attention away from that something that brings you value and something that moves you forward, I don't really think that it's a good community. Because why should I go to the community and, for example, community for community professionals? When I go there, I expect to see a conversation about community as a profession, about how to connect it with business, or maybe some engagement tactics, or maybe how to present to leadership. But once again, people are different people. But me personally, I do not expect people to talk about their pets or their children or whatever. When I meet friends and we have a one-on-one conversation, I would love to talk. I'm always asking like, how are your children? How are your parents or whatever? But like in general chat, I don't know, me personally not. I'd like to keep the conversation more in about the topic that community is about, not about some random stuff, because it's just creating too much noise. Some people can struggle with this. As you've said, you join and then you see a ton of messages everywhere. But if any of those messages are not bringing you any value, you're just leaving this community. You won't be there. It's so much better to join community once a week, see a few messages, very valuable, something that moving you forward, something that expands your knowledge, instead of like seeing hundreds of unread messages that do not bring any value.
This is why you're on the show, Yuri, because you're a practitioner, you're a builder, you're in the trenches, really testing a lot of these things on a day-to-day basis, which is why I think your perspective is so valuable. I'll reflect on a couple of things that you said, Yuri. The first is, I do think it's healthy to do a detox from time to time. I think it's healthy for somebody to actually look at everything that they're involved in. I'll give you my example of email. I have maybe 19 email addresses. 4 of them are for work. The other 15 are from going back to when I was 12 years old. I still look at it. It's mostly spam. It's a Yahoo email, but I still have it on my phone. I ascribe to inbox zero because I'm paranoid. Other people don't. Some people do, but I think we're in the minority in the world, right? I use that mechanism as a way to turn the chaos into clarity. I don't have something like that for community yet. I don't have something like that for Slack as of yet, for example. Maybe AI can help me in that domain. Maybe Claude can plug into all my Slack communities and basically give me a summary every morning and say, hey, this is what you should care about because I know you and you've uploaded the stuff you care about. Maybe that's a way. But I think a detox is healthy. I think stepping away from what doesn't bring you value, to your point, Yuri, is actually a healthy thing to do. And we shouldn't shy away from doing it. The second piece of it is, I think, on the part of community builders and admins, there needs to be governance on what is happening in the community, right? And I personally haven't done this because I don't moderate communities. I'm more of a participant and maybe a silent observer in many of them. But I think there needs to be governance, and there needs to be this idea of, we want to bring value to the collective. And in order to do that, we want to ascribe to some norms, right? High-level things. And if you have an issue with that, bring it up to a moderator. We're open to feedback. We're open to making the community better, but we can't have it be a free-for-all kind of thing.
Each community has its own character, and community's character connects to community manager character. Because, once again, no matter how you try not to be inside, you will be a leader. As a community manager, as a community builder, you will create the tone, and people will kind of like follow your tone. So once again, maybe someone did it and maybe someone could, create community that is not like them. But usually in my experience, it's very much about the energy and the passion that you are bringing inside. And community people are also feeling this They feel how you meet them. They feel what kind of onboarding are you creating. They feel what kind of guidelines you are implementing. And sometimes I was a member of communities that I didn't really like their guidelines. They were too kind of like strict, and they call it protective. But for me, they were stupid because, like, two examples. Once I posted the link to Community ROI because I was thinking that it's helpful, or no, it was about community life, about these conversations with human conversations with community folks. And I shared the link and they, don't spam, you can't do this. I'm like, it's a community for community professionals, like where is spam? I'm just sharing the conversation with one of you people that you can go and meet them. Like, don't spam, okay. And then another thing, it was like, I messaged one person who didn't answer me on LinkedIn. I wanted to invite them as a guest. I don't remember, it was Community Life or it was Community ROI. But this person messaged admins and told that I'm sending them unsolicited messages. And I'm like, how the hell on earth inviting someone as a guest to your podcast can be an unsolicited message? I don't get it. There are some things that I just, as a human, I can't get. And for me personally, the easier guidelines are, the better. Of course, sometimes you run businesses, you have to, I know that some communities for huge corporate companies, they have specific legal guidelines because you have to be compliant in what's going on about the data and stuff. But yeah, it's totally another level. But as little guidelines as possible. For me, it's always about like, be a good human, say people what you like to hear yourself, like be nice, be kind, do not swear, etc. And that's it. Like humans can understand how they can feel the temperature of the room when they are in the room.
Yeah.
But why should you tell them, you will have to expect 20 degrees Celsius when you join the room. If you go about 22 degrees, you are out of the community. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like, once again, it's very personal and people are different people. But I prefer the easier way. The less guidelines, the easier you make it for people to participate, the less boundaries you create for people to connect. It's okay. But of course, if you create an anonymous community, you have to have a lot of guidelines because, you know, when people are anonymous, they can do whatever they want without being punished for that. So it's kind of like very different type of a community.
No,
People are different people.
I agree with you, Yuri. I mean, there's no silver bullet. There's no one-size-fits-all set of guidance when it comes to creating anything that brings people together, whether it's a virtual community, an in-person community. Yeah.
And also to a point, each community are different. It was so weird to me. Even like I worked with different communities for freelancers, and you join one community, the same for freelancers. You join another community and they are different. And I was like, how can we create any kind of, I don't know, industry rules for different communities? But then, no, there is no way. You just, as a community manager or builder, you have to be a translator from like the business language to human language and vice versa. And basically, the better translator you are, the better the community will be. So I feel like, you know, community people have a lot of responsibility. Sometimes they don't even think about this, but actually they create a character of a community.
The role of the community manager or managers is so central to the success of the community and the growth of the community and how it continues to provide value. I could not agree more. And I think they're, in many organizations, they're kind of the unsung heroes. Like, they don't get enough credit, and they should. Not that they're looking for credit. I don't think that's the motivation for any community manager that I know, but it's nice to be acknowledged. It's nice to be able to see your work make real impact and then be able to fuel more innovation, more growth, more connection making within the organization. And I think I'm going to switch gears just a little bit, Yuri, because we've been touching on the topic of the importance of business outcomes and business goals when it comes to community building. And I want to think about that a little bit more, because in some of the work that I do in independent consulting, and you've worked with freelancers for many years at this point, it may be tough to make a case for community as being something that a business should care about. So when you run into that type of situation where there's hesitation, maybe it's not as often as it was in the past, maybe it's more often than it was in the past, or maybe the resistance has changed its flavor over time because everybody is trying to deal with so many different things. But when you see that type of hesitation around community building as a business asset, what are some of the ways that you've historically addressed it?
First of all, if I see a hesitation, I will try to ask why. I will ask what people think about the community, how do they feel about it, and try to identify, should I work with them? Because I don't want to fight with them and prove every single step and also ask for a permission of doing every single step. I prefer to work with people who understand the power of the community already, even without metrics, without numbers. Once again, there are so many examples in the internet. You can easily go check them, like go to the CMX community, go to Led by Community, go check Gareth Wilson, Community Inc. Like go read Joshua Zerkel, the community code book. There are so many examples of how community makes business better that, I don't know, it's hard not to find them. And also, I don't have to prove it because people before me already did the job and they already shared their examples. And that's also what I'm doing with the Community ROI podcast. I'm finding these community professionals and sharing their stories. I'm asking about their experiences and ask them to share their knowledge so more and more people find it easier to show the value of the community. So number one step is understanding whether this person already believes in the community without any numbers, without any metrics, etc. Because if they're skeptical, if you have to prove them, better go to another client.
Yeah.
Of course, if you are an independent professional, you need money, sometimes you can work with those people, but better not. The next step, when you still have to show the value, it's super easy. You talk to the founder, to the CEO, you talk to stakeholders. It depends on what size of a company you're working with. If it's a startup, most likely it's like 1-2 people. If it's a corporate, maybe you'll have to talk to like 10-20 people. But the question is that you talk to them, you identify, first of all, you identify the company goals, then you identify teams' goals, like what each team, what are the goals and KPIs. Then you identify each stakeholder human goals. Because even though, they want to make their work easier, they want to be seen and acknowledged. And the more you can help them to go where they want to be, the more they'll be happy working with you. And then at the end of the day, community is a horizontal layer. It connects different teams within the company, within the organization. And it helps to make those teams work together in a better way. And also connect those teams to community members, to their customers, to their clients. So then when you have some of the goals that that, let's imagine product team, they have a goal, they need to get user feedback because they want to understand what feature to build next. Or for example, you go to a marketing team and they tell you that they need more feedback, they need more user stories because they want to create some content around how the product helps their customers. And then while knowing what their goals are, your job as a community builder is to understand what is the best mechanism to make it work. Either you create an ambassador program and highlight all the people who are advocating for a product, make them seen, make them visible, and share their stories internally, externally, whatever, and also brings you other business. And those people, they are very happy to be seen. They are very happy to be acknowledged, and they are happy to spread the word about the company even more. Or you need a product feedback. Some people are geeks, some people are their first adopters. They're there to try your products. They want to, jump in. And then you go and find those people in the community, which helps to do the beta testing for your product team. You get like 5-10 people who are nerds like of your product, who like very, very, very invested in finding some things here and there. And they are becoming your testing department. And almost for free. Of course, you spend your human time and you build these connections, and then you definitely must acknowledge those people afterwards. But once again, when you know what other teams' goals, you are kind of helping them to achieve with the help of a community. Because community, for the sake of a community, it makes no sense. It always has to help all other teams in the business work together and get better results. So I would say it's kind of like amplifier of other teams. And then when you do this work, it's not easy. You have to do a lot of legwork. You have to have a lot of conversations, and you have to be very good in talking to people and knowing how to connect those pieces of the puzzle. But when you do this, you will have no problem explaining the value of the community. Because I remember it was one of the best humans, Stephanie Nakano. She told me that when she works with the company, she's not the person who is going and bragging about community, what community made. other teams are telling how community helps them. And that's the best part, where you don't have to, of course, you still have data, you still have stories, but other teams are advocating for you. And it's the best part, So first of all, if you don't have like buy-in, and if people are skeptical about community, whatever, prove us, don't work with them. But if you're in a situation that you will work to them, start with identifying business goals, teams goals, personal human goals, and then find a way on how to make them reach those goals. Show the results, and then they will believe you.
Words of wisdom there, tons of gems, Yuri. I think there's a lot that, again, goes into the narrative that you build around community. Life is all about stories. Whatever we tell with each other, this podcast is a story, your resume is a story, the way that you structure anything that you want to share with others has to fundamentally be a story. So community builders, they have the responsibility to share, to continue to write that story, and the readers are everybody in the organization, technically, right? Because we're not going to exclude anybody from the community, but the primary readers, I guess, are the people that you really want to impress, are those leaders that you got the leadership buy-in from initially, and any other stakeholders that are really trying to figure out measurement of the goals and the metrics, right? And I want to double click into the idea of metrics real quick, Yuri, because we talk about this a lot in the community space, and I personally struggle with the idea of what is it that we should measure when it comes to community, right? And we think about ROI, it's within the name of your podcast. There's anecdotal data, there is empirical data when it comes to measurement, but what is a community supposed to measure? What are some of those things that somebody listening can say? Is it the number of people that are in it? Is it the number of messages being sent every day? I don't think so, but what are those things that we should be measuring?
Everything that leads you to business results. Whatever leads you to prove and show the business results, track it, measure it, whatever. For me personally, it's just one main thing. Okay, so your business already has their business metrics. Either it's profit, or maybe the number of subscriptions, or whatever business metrics you have. Just make small field in your CRM, community, non-community member, and just track the same business metrics, and with this difference, community, non-community. It will already give you a great story to tell, and you will already see the impact. Once again, if you're doing it right, you will see that community members are doing much more, they're getting much more renewals, they're bringing much more referrals, they're like creating much more user-generated content than non-community people, of course, and they bring in more value to your business. But when you see that it doesn't happen like that, it means that you are doing wrong work, that you have to improve something in your community. Because usually that's the case. You can track the number of referrals through community. You can track the number of event participants, and even go the next step, how many of those participants became leads afterwards, or even became the customers of your service, or how many people improved. It always depends on, like, first of all, what team do you sit under? Because usually community sits under some kind of a team. A few companies that have community as a separate department. Usually it's customer support or success. Sometimes it's marketing, sometimes it's product. So based on where you are, most likely you have those metrics that will help your team to understand the values that community brings them. So I will not name names because there is so many information. And I believe it was the Community Collective. They did this playbook called the Community ROI metrics or whatever. There is a PDF with like 3-4 pages of the list of whole metrics, and you can choose what to track. When I speak to people in the Community ROI, I always ask them, like, what are those metrics? And they are different. So there is no one size fits all. So based on what goals do you have in your community, on your business goals, there are different metrics, so I just don't want to misguide people and say, hey, track this, this, and this, because sometimes maybe you don't need this. Maybe you need another metric. But definitely ensure that you are tracking the difference between community members and non-community members. What's the difference for business in those people?
That's a really good metric to think about, or a really way to, at a high level, map the way that you're designing the dashboard, if you will, is kind of my way of thinking about it. At every company that I've worked at, even for my clients, they want to see all the data in one place. And so boil it down to what matters, Yuri. I think you're absolutely right about that. Let's not overwhelm the person that wants to understand what community is doing for them. Let's focus on their pain points, which should be part of those goals, and tie the metrics directly to how those pain points are actually being solved. Yeah.
Just two things. Do not track the number of messages, because it's a shitty metric. It won't show you anything. You can have 100 messages about your dogs, or you can have one message that solves 100 questions of other people and helps them to use your product better. So like, if you are tracking the number of messages or you are tracking the number of participants, ensure that this number is somehow connected with some other business goals. Have a bigger story. So if you see that there are like 100 messages, then track how many people joined, like bought your product, or how many people renewed the product out of those conversations. And then you can combine it and see, okay, this month we had 100 messages, 10 people renewed. Next month we have 10 messages, no one reviewed. Maybe it's connected. Maybe it makes sense for people to talk more. That's exactly how we're on their minds more. And that's exactly why they renew. Maybe, maybe not. But once again, it's very different when you have a community for community professionals, because they are very chatty. They like to talk about everything and also about their personal lives. And it's okay. But for example, if you will have a community for CEOs of, I don't know, Forbes 500 or whatever you call it, I doubt they have time to read all those 100 messages. And they really want this one message that someone sends to be very valuable, that it's worth reading. So it's very, very tricky metric. And it's also like the vanity metric. And also about the engagement, don't think how to improve engagement for the sake of engagement. Think about how to create specific engagement that helps your business to get to their business goals. What kind of engagement? I don't know. It depends on kind of business you are running. So if you have a question, send me a message on LinkedIn and ask, describe your situation and let's talk more about it.
It's an awesome call to action for folks listening. And it dovetails right into the next question I have for you, Yuri. We kind of prefaced this entire conversation with all the great work that you're doing in the community space and as a consultant and as a business owner. What are the best places for people to find you? LinkedIn is how I first reached out. So I was going to...
Yeah, please go there. It will be the easiest part.
Sure.
First, there is just one Yurii Lazaruk that you can find. And secondly, I almost live there on LinkedIn. Sometimes people send me messages via email. I'm not responding to them for weeks and oh, sorry, I didn't check my email. So yeah, please LinkedIn. Or you can also subscribe to Community ROI newsletter.
Yeah.
It's on Substack. You can easily find this. Anywhere you find me, please connect. I know that LinkedIn is not allowing to send a lot of messages, 5 intro messages per month. So if you are using free LinkedIn and you have these 5 messages, just add the message, why do you want to connect with me? Because it will be easier to understand how to move forward. And yeah, let's just see. And also, if I'm not answering to you, just ping me, send me extra message, because I have so many messages in my inbox. Okay, so there is a way I treat my inbox. I go every time 5 on top, 5 on the bottom. So I answer those and those. So if you are constantly somewhere in the middle, there is a very, very low chance that I will answer you fast. So either be on top or either wait till you get to the bottom.
Words of wisdom right there. I'm going to try that 5 top, 5 bottom inbox strategy soon, Yuri. I'll put all the links in the show notes as well. To folks that are listening, I think one of the very consistent and fun things that I've enjoyed about Yuri's work is he hosts Between Two Water Coolers, which is a Zoom session. I believe it's now once a month. It's on a Friday. I have gone to those events and I've really enjoyed those events, and I've met some really cool people, and it's all over the world. I've met people from the West Coast, from different parts of Europe, Asia. And what's funny is I'm actually meeting up with somebody. I met up with multiple people for coffee and for in-person meetups on my travels that I met through Yuri and through Between Two Water Coolers. So Yuri is a living proof of the power of community that transcends both the technology and the human dimension.
Oh, I'm blushing right now, Farhan. My cheeks are red.
Oh, but that's
stop it.
That's why you're on the show, man, because I want people to see that for somebody like me who's in the space, you've brought a ton of value, you have a ton of expertise, and I want everybody to be able to know more about what you do and really help you build community in even more amazing ways, which I'm sure you'll do.
One more thing that I would add to community folks out there, because nowadays I connect with a lot of community people all over the world. I just want to spread the word about the community industry, to connect people with each other, to help them thrive and grow. And not that many people actually learning how to build a community. What I mean by saying learning, they're learning by doing, which is good, which is okay. But you always have to speak to other people. You always have to listen to some podcasts like this. You have to find some newsletters. I'm not telling you to read all the newsletters that exist or listen to all of the podcasts, but sometimes it's good to read at least one newsletter per week, to listen to one podcast per week, to have just one conversation with a community person. And also, I was surprised that some community people think that I want to sell them something. I connect with them. I just ask them questions like, hey, do you have any challenges? Is there any way I can help you? Maybe connect you with someone. And they are either not answering, or sometimes they, oh, I don't have time for that. I'm like, okay, whatever, you don't have time for that. But with some humans, I have very, very amazing conversations. We have coffee chats. We continuously talk. We meet at between two water coolers. And that's how you build relationships. And sometimes I'm very surprised why community people who are actually people are so close to meeting new people. So please be open to the world. Of course, there will be people who want to sell you something, but you will definitely identify this. But be open, ask questions, go to the coffee chats, and make some friends. That's very easy.
It's a win-win for everybody, and the more we put time into it, the more that we're active and genuine and authentic in those connections. Not about quantity, it's about quality, right? Once a month, go to between two water coolers. In any case, attend those events. Show up genuinely as your authentic self, and you'll be surprised, just over the past 15 months or so, you'll be surprised at how much value you can get from just being yourself and being somebody that wants to build a community and contribute to community. Yuri, any other final thoughts?
You told about being yourself, and I remember this quote that be yourself, all other roles are taken. It's the hardest part, but it's also the best part, because when you show up as real you will connect with people much better. Of course, not with everyone. With some people you will never click, and it's okay. Just pass, go to the next. You will definitely find someone you click with.
Awesome note to end on, Yuri. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm going to put all of your links in the show notes, and I really encourage all of our listeners to check those out. That's it for this episode of the Community Podcast. If you're building or growing a learning community, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next conversation.